Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Azren, the language nerd here, owner of the Calgary Language Nerds, and welcome to today's YouTube video and of course podcast episode. Today I'm continuing my Azren's Top Language Learning Tips series. If you haven't seen any of these episodes before, please visit my website. I'll put a link in the description of this episode, and you can see all the different videos and podcasts I've made as a part of this series. Essentially, what I'm doing in this series is taking all the content I've made over the past 7 years, at least 7 years as I'm recording this today, from 2016 to 2023, and I'm distilling it onto one single web page. I'm taking all the advice I've shared and cherry picking the best pieces of advice and putting them onto my website. Now, today, what I would like to talk about are two different things you can do that will solve most, or at least quite a few different challenges that you might be facing as a language learner. You see, as a language learner, you might have lots of different problems. Maybe you're struggling with conversation. Maybe pronunciation is hard. Maybe you think the grammar is very complicated. Maybe you need external accountability. Maybe who knows what it is. There are a number of things you might be struggling with. And each one of those challenges that you might be having has a number of different ways, a number of different possible solutions. And today, as I said, I'm going to share two different things you can do as a language learner that would solve a significant percentage of the problems that you are currently facing or will face in the future when learning whatever language you're trying to learn. The first solution is to find a language parent. Now, I'm going to read something that Dr. Stephen Krashen has written. I'm going to put a link to this article in the description of this episode. So he's written a little document here, and he says, a language parent, like an actual parent, is someone who will engage you in conversation in the language you are acquiring, but who will not try to be your teacher. They will try to understand what you say, even though you are miles away from what a native speaker would usually be able to understand. They are interested in you as a person, and more often than not, the person will be quite talkative. In other words, a language parent is someone who will give you comprehensible input. If you don't know what comprehensible input is, basically it's listening or reading material that is at your level, something you can understand, even though you might be a very beginner level or even intermediate level. It's simplified or spoken slowly. Maybe there's visual cues. Basically, the person talking is doing what they can to make sure you understand what they're saying. Whereas sometimes when you talk to native speakers, or if you're listening to a podcast or watching a video, for example, maybe the people that you're listening to aren't doing that for you. So a language parent is going to make it comprehensible. They're going to do everything they can to make sure you can understand what they're saying to you. Let me keep reading this document. The theory predicts that language parents are extremely helpful. They provide comprehensible input that may be hard to find elsewhere. And as well, they provide encouragement, support, and understanding. So language parents are very useful, as this document is saying. You get that comprehensible input, which allows you to truly acquire the language. You can naturally start to acquire grammar. You have a friend. You have someone to do conversation practice with. You could naturally acquire vocabulary. You get a direct link to the culture behind the language you're learning. It truly does. It's almost, just having a language parent is almost a comprehensive solution enough to learning a language. That's great. Duolingo, for example, is not generally speaking, I think most people would agree that Duolingo, as one example, is not a comprehensive language learning solution. Not exactly, right? Lots of different things that language learners do to learn a language are not comprehensive solutions to learning a language. A language parent, on the other hand, if you're able to find one, could potentially be not necessarily, not 100% chance, but there's a decent chance that having a language parent is a comprehensive solution for you to learn another language, or even very close to comprehensive. The other great thing about language parents is it's, as I said at the beginning of this episode, is a language parent solves a lot of can solve a lot of the problems that you are facing or will face in the future as a language learner. You don't have someone to do conversation practice with, language parent solves that. You're struggling with listening comprehension. A language parent solves that because they're going to speak to you in a way that's challenging for you to understand, but you're able to keep up with most of what they say. And they're always going to be just slightly ahead of you, but not 10 steps ahead of you. So you're always moving forward naturally just by interacting with them. You're struggling with grammar? Well, through a language parent, you'll naturally acquire different grammatical structures. Sometimes a language parent might even be someone who can somewhat explain or even explain very clearly how certain grammar points work. I've had that experience in the past with language parents. You think pronunciation is hard? Well, the language parent will often be patient enough with you to help you work through it, for you to try and say something, and they'll say, oh, that's not quite right. Try saying it like this. And you say, like this? Yeah, like that. Yay, good job. And they're encouraging. A language parent, if you struggle with motivation, they might motivate you, right? It's motivating to have that language parent there. So a language parent solves quite a few problems that a language learner might face, and definitely makes the experience more enjoyable to learn a language, and definitely expedites the process of becoming very fluent in another language. Now, how do you find a language parent? Well, there's a few options. If you have the luxury of living in a city where, or in a place where there are lots of native speakers, their communities of native speakers are in close to where you live, well, you might be able to go to the places they hang out, go to events that these people go to, and start to make some friends. If you don't have that luxury, you'll probably want to use the internet, meaning joining Facebook groups that have native speakers of your language. Maybe there are some forums you can find, some old school forums. Maybe you can use other digital resources such as HelloTalk or Tandem. People have mixed results with those two apps, but they're worth trying because some people really love it. Some people don't, but definitely enough people like it where it's worth trying out. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put a short little PDF in the description box of this episode that you can download and check out. And that gives a couple of different options of how you can go about finding a language parent. The PDF was actually something I designed for a completely different project a number of years ago, but I'm just going to put it here anyway because it applies very, very well to finding a language parent. Okay. Now this leads to my second piece of advice to solving most, or at least many, problems that language learners face when learning another language, which is to hire a private tutor. Now, your private tutor actually can become your language parent. You can even hire a tutor as a shortcut to find a language parent, which is kind of cool. Now, just like with language parents, finding a private tutor is it's a good idea ultimately because it solves so many different problems. You can do conversation practice with them. They can help you with grammar practice. They can be someone that holds you accountable if you need it. You can do pronunciation practice with them. They can be someone who motivates you. They can become your friend. If you're looking for recommendations for shows or podcasts or things to listen to, they can work on it with you. If you want to work on your writing, they can correct your writing with you. If you are looking for a friend, well, they can kind of be your friend. If you want, who knows what it is. They solve so many different problems that language learners face. And the cool thing is that it doesn't have to be that expensive. Some people think language tutors are very expensive. And there's some truth to that because, well, they might be very expensive, but it doesn't have to be. If you go to a website like italki.com, that's spelled italki.com, there are plenty of affordable tutors on that website. You will have to shop around because not every tutor is going to match what you're looking for exactly. Maybe their teaching style doesn't match how you want to learn. Maybe you want to work on something that they don't know how to help you with. Who knows what it is, but if you shop around a little bit, you are highly likely to find someone who matches your needs. Even for private tutors, so it doesn't have to be necessarily very expensive because people have different rates. You can also save money by taking 30 or 45-minute classes instead of 60-minute classes. That might save you some money. And you don't even necessarily have to take a class every week or multiple classes a week, even 1 or 2 classes a month. I would say 2 classes a month, but even 1, depending on what you want to work on, could be helpful. But even, a couple classes a month and they're half an hour, that can also go a very long way. And so all of a sudden you're spending $20 a month, $30 a month, something like that, which is far more affordable than if you were paying a tutor $40 an hour for 60-minute lessons every week and you're paying $160 a month. Like that could get, I understand that being pretty pricey, but a couple lessons a month, you do shorter lessons, or you find a more affordable instructor on a website like italki.com. Like you can really save some money. It doesn't have to be that pricey, not necessarily. Right? I know some people might have had negative experiences in the past with private tutors. And all I would say is, listen, try again. Just because you've had 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4 or 5 negative experiences, it doesn't mean that private tutors are bad. It doesn't mean that's a bad way to learn. It might just mean that you've been unlucky. And it also might mean that you need to change your approach to how you interact with your private tutors so that you have a more positive experience. You know, I had a very negative experience not that long ago, like 2 weeks ago with a private tutor, where in the class we were butting heads, we were clashing. I wanted to learn in a way that the teacher didn't teach, and the teacher wanted to teach me in a way that I didn't learn. And in fact, after the class, the instructor actually blocked me on italki, or at least I think she did, because I can't contact her anymore. I can't book any more classes with her. And she even sent me a message that was something to the effect of, I'm glad you're not going to book more classes with me. Anyway, it's a whole thing. Basically, like she really, I get the feeling I rubbed her the wrong way in the class. And so after that experience, when I booked another class with another instructor, this time I thought to myself, let me send a message to the instructor in advance and tell her, hey, my name is this, here's why I'm learning this language, here's what I want to do in the class. I understand this might be different from your typical curriculum, but I would really appreciate it if this is what you can work on. This would be what would help me learn best. And then I had a much more positive experience in the next class with the instructor. It was very different from how she typically taught. She told me she was worried that maybe she wouldn't be able to teach the way that I asked the class to be taught, but she did her best. And ultimately, it was a very positive class. I had a great time. She did a great job. And I would totally book more classes with her willingly, happily in the future. So that's just if you have had a negative experience, or maybe multiple in the past with private tutors, well, something that might help, it's helpful for me, is to change your approach as to how you communicate with that private tutor. So you might tell them in advance what you want to work on, for example, right? Maybe you're someone who's a little bit introverted, or you feel nervous taking a private class. Maybe you feel like there's a lot of pressure on you because it's just you and the instructor. Well, what you might want to consider in a situation like that is take shorter classes and tell the instructor you feel a little bit nervous. I had a private, in fact, I still have one at my business. She started taking lessons about, I can't remember exactly when, but it's been at least 6 months, but I want to say it's longer than that. And when she first started taking lessons, she was afraid that she couldn't focus for the whole duration of the lessons. She thought it was overwhelming to have even a 30-minute lesson. And so she paid for 30-minute lessons, but she told me she might stop the lesson after 15 to 20 minutes. And that's totally fine. You might do that yourself as well. And then you can build your stamina up over time. There's no shame in that whatsoever, right? If you find a nice, flexible, friendly tutor or a private teacher, they'll accommodate you, right? Or at least they'll try their best to accommodate you. So let's recap everything in this video here. Language learners struggle with a whole bunch of different things. There are different solutions to every single one of the challenges that you might be facing. There are 2 different things you can do that will solve a significant percentage of all the challenges that you are facing or will face in the future. The first one is to find a language parent, which I'm going to put a PDF document in the description box of this episode to give you some options of how to find that language parent. Someone friendly, who talks to you, who slows down for you, who tries to use simpler language, who encourages you, right? Someone like that, who's your buddy, your friend in a sense, in that language. Or you can consider hiring a private tutor. The private tutor you might hire them to be a language parent in a sense, or you might hire them to work on something specifically that you want to work on, that you're having a challenge with, whether it's grammar, conversation, listening, motivation, who knows what it is. Those 2 options, those 2 different strategies are 2 strategies that, as I said, before, solve a significant percentage of challenges that language learners face. If you have any questions, you're welcome to contact me. Visit my website. That's azrenthelanguagenerd.com/contact. That's AZ or ZREN, thelanguagenerd.com/contact. You can email me there and find all my social media platforms as well. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will talk very soon. Bye for now. See you.